Hi everyone, this is Rico Figliolini. This is Prime Lunchtime with City Manager at Peachtree Corners, Brian Johnson. We do this every month right after the City Council meeting. A lot to talk about. Want to mention also that we're doing this out of Prototype Prime, the city's incubator. 14,000 plus square feet, more than that. At
25,000.
25,000 with the upstairs. And in fact, the city's closing on this building tomorrow.
That is correct. At the end of close of business tomorrow, the city will own the entire two-story, 25,000 square foot structure.
And part of that was because of the federal grant that was given to the city.
That is correct. So we told the federal government, the Economic Development Agency with the federal government, you know, what we were doing here and what we were doing to create jobs, and they liked it enough that they decided to make a $1.8 million investment themselves, and so we're off to the races.
Unbelievable. City doesn't have to put out any money for it. Federal government took care of it. I also want to mention that we are brought to you by CMX Cinebistro, which is open now at Town Center. It is I had the opportunity to visit through a media event. It is like a 4-star restaurant that happens to show movies, good first-run movies. So feel free. You should be, going online, reserve your seat. There's 95 seats in each of the 6 theaters, and it's 21 and over after 6 p.m. So great date night, adult. You can even basically go there just to have dinner at the restaurant, not even see a movie, or have a drink at the bar as well. So great place. CMX Cinebistro here in Peachtree Corners as a sponsor of the show and an advertiser in the Peachtree Corners magazine that I produce. So now back onto the city and talking a little bit about what's been going on. We have there's been a lot going on, but I guess the first thing we should get off the table is the recent MARTA vote as well, because that got that got turned down. The voters decided not to do MARTA, not to approve the referendum that would bring in the hard rail to the first stop at Jimmy Carter and industrial Peachtree, Jimmy Carter Boulevard rather, and by doing so also stopped any expansion of transit without that SPLOST money. So now the Gwinnett County is going to have to figure out what to do next.
Yeah, I mean, there can be expansion of transit. There's currently transit. It's just Gwinnett County government-funded transit.
Correct.
It's not through a special penny sales tax specific to this county.
Right. It's funny because, I mean, when I was watching my Facebook posts that were going out on the things that were going, a lot of it was negative. I saw very few positive quotes. Of course, the negative side of it is always seems to be more verbal.
Well, they're the ones that actually take the time to, get on a social media site and actually post there.
Right, and it was only a handful. It wasn't like there was 100, 200 people, but it was always a handful of vocal people. But you got the sense that it was probably going to be turned down, but I didn't realize by how much of a margin that it was going to be turned down. And I guess one of the things was unfortunately, the plan actually showed a hub being put at Peachtree Corners Circle and West Jones Bridge Road, which is where YMCA is, Peachtree Corners Baptist Church, and Cornerstone Christian School Academy. And that got people into an uproar. But Charlotte Nash did a good presentation, though, talking about that.
Well, the Gwinnett County Transit Plan, the master plan they had that was referenced in the agreement with MARTA,
right,
and would have been the plan used by MARTA if the referendum had passed, did have a reference to what was termed in the study as a transit hub placed at that intersection.
Right.
And when it came to our attention, the city was like, whoa, wait a second.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so, we reached out to Gwinnett County, and, they were like, well, hey, hold on. The plan is just a plan. It's not set in stone. It wasn't meant to be going there and only there, but unfortunately the toothpaste was out of the tube at that point.
Well, and kind of silly of them because they put a really small circle.
Yes, they did.
Right
Instead of just saying something about like an a general area of the city or whatever. I mean, clearly if you look at, travel activity in the city that might benefit from transit, it would be along the Holcomb Bridge Road corridor,
right.
much more than deep into kind of our core neighborhood, residential area. And so, yeah, that one was not, of course, that was done by a consultant to Gwinnett County. That was not done by Gwinnett County employees per se. But again, unfortunately, that it was out there. And so there was a meeting to make sure that everybody knew here that the city would be, vehemently opposed if that was going to happen. And Gwinnett County had said, no, it wasn't our intention. But again, so whether there was damage done by it or not is
I think it would have been. I think it would have been turned down anyway.
I was going to say, who knows? I mean,
don't think it was just that. So all right, so that's in the past history now. That's the third referendum or third vote taken to bring MARTA and Gwinnett County in. So that's behind. Although I hear they're talking about maybe a 2020 type of proposal. So we'll see what happens. But there's other good things going on, great things going on in the city. I mean, we have quite a few things going on, actually. So where would you want to start, Brian?
I mean, you know better than your viewing and listening audience know. I mean, I don't know. You want to talk about update on some of the projects that?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about. Let's start off with the town center because everyone's seeing construction moving further along. The big building that's being built. I'm not quite sure if that's Lazy Dog only or if that's a building with a few tenants in it.
The one that's right on 141?
Right on 141.
Yeah, that's just Lazy Dog.
Okay. And there's a tower.
That's just part of their architectural facade.
So there's that building I think they feel they're going to be complete in May is what I understand. But
that's the plan. I mean, Mother Nature threw a lot of, precipitation curveballs at us last year on construction projects because we just got second most rain in Georgia history.
Yes.
So there's definitely some hesitance when we start saying, oh, it'll be done by a certain time because Mother Nature could say, oh yeah, challenge accepted. So
yeah. So
but that's the plan is the May timeframe. They're moving. I mean,
they're moving fast actually, and the building that's going to be next to it towards the entrance. Is also a building where there's a couple of tenants that are going to be in, I believe.
Yeah, so in between Lazy Dog and actually the Town Center Drive will be one more building.
Right.
And that will be a structure with two tenants. One is Uncle Jack's Meat House.
Yes.
And the other one is an Xfinity store.
Okay.
And so they will be under the same roof,
okay.
But they will it will be bisected by those two units. So that's going in. We've still got a number of units within the town center that the build out is not done. The tenants are in the build out process, but they're not done, so it's not quite open yet.
Right.
And then of course probably some of the bigger big ticket remaining items would be the town green itself.
Right.
Which we have an end of April.
So then people can
opening.
visualize this. They drive into the main part across from the forum and go where?
Well, so if you're coming to get to the town green,
correct.
The best way would be to go straight through the roundabout with the fountain,
right,
to where it dead ends at Farmburger,
right,
and just to the right of Farmburger, almost where you're deading into Cinebistro.
Right.
And then you would make a left
At that street.
and you have to make a right or a left.
Correct.
So you would be driving away from the parking deck, and then you would drive along to your right. Once you clear another couple of shops, you would see it on your right.
So
now that's one way, and there's some parking over there if you wanted to get close. Of course, most of the activity there, the best place to park would be at the parking deck, and then you just walk through the northeastern corner of the parking deck, and that would be kind of right in between Cinebistro and Farmburger. We have a pedestrian thoroughfare created specifically for you to walk in. That's kind of the pedestrian gateway to it. And you would come out on the town green onto a planned, improved space.
So that town green, people visualize this is really behind Cinebistro.
Or to the left if you're standing at the fountain looking at it. But yes, Cinebistro is one of the four edges of it, is the side of Cinebistro. Okay. And that side is where the main stage for performances are,
Okay.
and we also have the big screen, outdoor screen,
Excellent.
that is mounted just off the facade of Cindy
And that's going to
Bistro.
be that acreage for the town green is actually
Two-ish.
2-ish acres. All right. So there's that, which is great. I mean, this way people know where to go. There's also townhomes that are going to be built.
There are. So we got,
on the-
about 75 townhomes being built on the northern edge of the town green.
Right.
So, you will currently have, and it's not exactly north, south, east, west, but if you kind of consider the town green city oriented that way, the northern side of the town green will be bordered by the townhomes.
Okay.
The western side will be bordered by the development of the town center.
Right.
The southern part will be Cinebistro, and then the eastern side is currently bordered by property the city purchased.
6 acres or so.
Correct.
And the memorial, the Veterans Memorial,
That's
is
at the
also
northeastern corner
northeastern.
of the town
Okay.
green.
Cool. So then people can visualize that.
Yes, and then visit it and sit on the benches there
Right.
and do all the stuff that you would want to
Okay,
have.
neat.
So it's got 3 of the 4 sides have already been determined as far as how it's going to cap the edge of the town green.
Okay.
The 4th side, the eastern side, mayor and council are wanting to kind of observe the town green after it's been activated.
Uh-huh.
And kind of see how things are going, and maybe we really want to use that side to be some sort of a value add to the activity out there. We just don't know exactly what, or in some cases it may be we know what we want to do, but we don't know how it needs to look to, again, be a value add to the town green.
Right.
So we are in an enviable position. We can expand the town green to a degree,
With
which
some
is
of
one
that-
of the reasons that we purchased it, is because of the town green is too small. It's really getting a lot of use, and we feel like we got to expand it. We can expand to that side.
Because the 2 acres really isn't all green 2 acres.
No, most of the 2 acres is gathering space, but there's a lot of it that's improved.
Okay.
It's not unimproved, just open, flat grass.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff on the periphery that's improved. We've got an interactive, at-grade fountain, interactive fountain for kids, and we've got another little play area with some berms for kids to kind of go up and go on a slide. We've got the veterans monument, which isn't a gathering space. But it's improved gathering space. So a lot of it's improved, but
So
it
is
still
that-
could be used. If there was a big concert, you could be sitting at the Veterans Memorial
And still see the.
and still see the concert, which was the other reason we put the really large TV screen out there. I mean, large. I mean, I want to say it's like 21 feet diagonal.
Okay.
I mean, it's a
That's
big one.
fairly large, yeah.
But we're wanting to, if we have live performances, you can also take the
project-
feed and
yeah,
then project it on there, so you don't have to be right up there. It's
Nice.
high, and you
Okay.
can project, what's happening. So, we have some pretty cool councils. Well, my staff is formalizing kind of year 1 of the event schedule for the town green. It's probably at an 80% solution right now. Council's been, provided some updates on what we're looking at and provided us some guidance on how they want to see certain things.
Right.
And so we're finalizing that. So there'll be a social calendar,
Okay.
town green calendar that'll be coming out, within the next probably 30 days, maybe at the groundbreaking.
I think.
Or not groundbreaking, the ribbon cutting of the town green.
Ribbon
It'll
cutting.
be we'll lay it all out there. And again, year 1 or season 1 is a lot about learning what works and what doesn't. So that we're going to have some events that people are like, wow, we've got to do this more often, or you need to add this one amenity to make that event even better. And
Right.
so we'll learn. We're going to also have some events that people are like, yawn.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, this is a learning curve between us and the community. We want the community to provide us input, ideas, and in some cases, be the ones to actually organize and kind of manage some of the things at the grassroots level. We are not wanting, and unless the residents of the city want us to have a lot of, property, money coming out of their wallets and purses. They don't want us to be the organizer of every single event that happens on there.
No, and it's probably better not anyway.
Correct. And so there's a lot of things that we want at the grassroots level to be done without really the city's involvement, other than ensuring that it's reserved properly. There's insurance if there needs to be. The
Police
activity is, as the case may be. But, let's say, somebody wanted to do yoga, on the green on Sunday mornings, or weekday mornings. Well, we don't need to be out there with a staff member, doing all that. Just what are you doing? They tell us, we say good. They reserve a portion of the town green, and then they do their thing.
Okay.
Or somebody wants to use the stage to have a class at one of the schools to do a Shakespeare in the, on the green, type of thing. We don't need to be involved in all of that. So we're hoping the community kind of says, look, it's the community's town green, and use it.
And there'll be fees set so then people can rent.
In some cases, some cases it won't need to be. It just depends on what somebody's needing. I mean, if it requires assets to support it, like bathrooms or security, then certainly. Sometimes it may be, look, I'm going to bring 20 people just want to reserve a corner of it to do yoga.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that there will necessarily be.
All right. So, there's limits, obviously. I'm a sponsor of the Peachtree Corners Festival that's going on in June. And, of course, this year they're going on at Crooked Creek Road behind Marriott Queen Church down that road.
Right.
So where they've had it for several years, actually. So, and I asked them, at some point, do you foresee maybe doing it at Town Green or at the center? And of course, the town center, the way it's structured, is probably too small for the expanse of their festival right now, unless more acreage is added to the space or something else is done, it seems. But that's fine. I mean, eventually, like you said, when you see how the use evolves, then it's a matter of looking at it.
Yeah, we just want to see it activated, and again, we got some property to add to it. We also have a section of Peachtree Corners Circle, kind of the last section between, Peachtree Parkway and Medlock Bridge, that could be closed if we wanted to, have it closed to through traffic, and so there is space for us to kind of do some extra things if we want to have a really big event and pre-staged vehicles or whatever. So there are some options, but some cases, you can't build some of this space for all uses.
Right. That's right.
I mean, so, there may be some events that are just too big and we don't want to do it there, or we don't want to have that many people there. We could do it, but they could be tearing up the grass or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it's a decision that we have to make case by case. So.
All right. There's a lot of other things going on also, especially in Tech Park. So, for example, there's a new software company that's taken over the old Honeywell building. Right?
That's a biomedical, or biotech, I guess.
They're supposed to be taking it over and renovating the whole building to like loft style.
So,
offices.
that I'm glad you brought up that. So, when the city was created, and Tech Park's been here for, many decades, and, it was the first true technology park in Metro Atlanta, and the amount of patents and trademark stuff coming out of this area is pretty cool. I mean, the Hayes modem was created here. I mean, Scientific Atlanta was headquartered here. I mean, so there's some pretty cool history. But, as anything ages, as we all know, as we age, we go through different cycles of, I used to have a full head of hair, and, and so you have to sometimes, look at, all right, what do we need to do to make sure that, we're injecting, new life in something. And so as we've talked about before, the city said, look, we need to look at Tech Park as a whole and see if the city can do anything to improve what's going on. So, it started with the master plan, the Innovation Hub master plan, and what we need to do to turn Tech Park into that innovation hub. It came back with a lot of suggestions that the city started to take to heart. Some of the easier ones were make it more walkable or rideable, as the case may be. And so where you're getting into the enhanced sidewalks, or one of the buildings that just has been vacant for a while, that it was just announced that is going to be was bought and is going to be occupied, is the old Recall building.
Yeah.
And it was its new owner just executed the easement for us to actually finally put the remaining multi-use trail around the large lake that's here in Tech Park.
Okay.
The previous owner had not been particularly easy to work with, had wanted us to buy it instead of donate it, and of course we can do that, but the more property we have to buy, we weren't even wanting fee simple title ownership of it. We just wanted an easement.
Yeah.
But the more we have to buy, the less than money there is for construction. And so we had been hoping this would happen. The new owners were like, absolutely, it's an amenity, so we're going to start that in soon.
Okay.
I mean, like within the next 30 days,
Huh.
because the design's been done, the contractor's actually been chosen, so we're ready to go. And so trails within Tech Park,
New sidewalks.
and new enhanced sidewalks. Then you had the millennial or workforce housing.
Yeah.
We didn't have
that's
enough
been
of
there.
that. And we may still end up having instances where there's more added, but Echo Lakeside is the
On Peachtree
current.
Industrial Boulevard.
Its entrance is off of there, but it's the back of it is, or all of it is really inside of what is officially Tech Park Atlanta. And they're on the lake that I just talked about. In fact,
Right.
part of their development required them to put in the multi-use trail that's on their
Yeah,
property.
yeah.
So there's
And
already
a
a little
dock.
bit of, and a dock. They actually have kayaks.
Yes, they do. It's
And
like
so,
a little resort.
Right. So good for them. I mean, that's how we wanted that, lake to be activated and everything. And so, that happened. Job creation, doing something to encourage innovation within Tech Park was another one. We're sitting in one of those.
Yeah.
Prototype Prime is a city-funded, public-private partnership. We have two other incubators here.
Right.
Um,
Atlanta Tech Park and 22.
22 Tech Park. Right. And so both of those, are here also. So we have, incubators / accelerators.
Right.
And so we're doing that. And then, of course, the last thing we've been involved in is, Curiosity Lab at Peachtree Corners and that whole thing, which, we could talk about in a second. But when you combine all of that stuff, what you're already seeing is the fact that the city decided to invest in Tech Park. Mayor and council said we need to do something instead of just sit back, cross our fingers, and hope the free market takes. Right. So there's been an injection by the city into certain things that has increased the buzz and the activity, and it's paying off. We've got, and including Curiosity Lab, our investment in this track, in this laboratory, has already got us 5G before anybody else in Metro Atlanta will get us.
That's not implemented yet.
No, we're inside of 60 days of the switch being turned on. I mean,
in Tech Park.
In Tech Park, not just on the track, all over Tech Park.
Yep.
I mean, they're installing the mini macro sites right now.
And most people don't know this. I mean, 5G as opposed to 4G or LTE, they need the cell towers, right, for the data transmission. But
5G does too.
But it's a little different, isn't it?
It is a little bit different.
It's
but they don't.
towers,
Yes, and you don't
not
need as many.
Right.
So 5G, its main benefit is it's more than 10 times faster than 4G, and it's got lower latency or lower lag time.
Right.
Which that's key for some of the stuff that we'll see tested out in our laboratory, and that is autonomous vehicles. You don't want there to be high latency on something like that.
Yes.
And then also the V2X, the vehicle to everything communication, you need a really broad bandwidth and high speed, and that's what 5G brings that 4G LTE does not. And so now, if you got a car driving down the, call it the street of the future, and you've got the V to X going on, you've got that car as it drives, it's talking to other cars coming the other way or in front and back of it.
Essentially in the future, not currently. But
correct, but you can't even get into putting that in if 5G environment doesn't exist because there's too much communication going on for 4G LTE to handle.
Sure.
And so now even in our laboratory, in the year of our Lord 2019, we will have that capability. So a car that has DSRC transmitter, dedicated short-range communication device, could go down and it could be talking to every car it passes, every light pole it passes, every signal it crosses under, every phone of a pedestrian on the sidewalk that had that capability it could talk to.
Right.
And that's the wave of the future.
A lot of countries are doing it. I mean, the whole big thing about China and I forget the name. Huawei was that they were getting to 5G and enabled devices, and the fear of that of a foreign government doing it. But it's big outside the country, and it hasn't grown here in the United States as fast as it's grown in other countries.
This year, I mean, this has really been now all the companies have the capability to create 5G wireless environments.
Yeah.
And so the
the
race is on.
Right.
Yes, the race is on.
And we're hoping that they will, because there's a lot of infrastructure improvement, capital spending.
And that's what that's the race right now is what transmits 4G LTE does not transmit 5G. So you got to put new stuff out there, and that costs money.
Right.
And so they can only move as fast as they have the resources, or they can start getting prescription-paying customers on it.
Well, this is also why
subscription,
right? I get what you were saying, but and this is why companies haven't done it yet, because no one went out of that. No one went out of the out of the gate.
Right. They did not want to be the.
I mean, some of them say they are, but they're not really. They say they have 5G or they're moving towards it, but they're not. But Sprint is actually doing it in small places.
Oh, absolutely. And because it requires two sides of this communication relationship. You have the transmitter side that's transmitting 5G, but then you've also got to have the end user side that's using it. I mean, a phone is the best example. We could be sitting in a 5G environment all day long, but if my phone doesn't know how to use that, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
And so there's a lot of testing that still has to be involved on things like phones or other devices that tie into 5G that need to be in a 5G environment, and so they can then start testing how to integrate that signal. So we've had interest now, even in Prototype Prime, of companies that are in the business of needing wireless signal, that they want to set up shop at least for a period of time, working with the Sprint experts on 5G utilization for their device. Like we've got one that is involved in 3D virtual reality headsets, and they want the 5G, need the 5G environment because there's so much information going in so they want to set up here so that they can test and get their device using 5G. So we're a laboratory in and of ourselves.
And that's interesting, too. I mean, we don't have to get into the muck on that, but VR is really taking off in the commercial, industrial area more than the gaming area that people thought it was going to be. So,
we've talked to some companies. I mean, there's some applications that we could have here even. A good example of that would be the Forum. Yeah. When you get onto the interior of the Forum and you're looking for a parking spot, when you look down that long, you have no idea if there isn't. So you end up just rolling the dice, getting in there, and slowly going through. And sometimes you find one, sometimes you don't. Virtual reality, there are applications in which you could even on your phone, using your camera, when you turn your camera on and you hold it up, it'll show the view that the camera's showing. Real time. I could show you, with the app, there is a virtual reality component that you could hold it up down the length and it would show you a symbol over a empty parking spot.
We're talking about augmented reality.
Correct.
So
it's a real world image, but then they're augmenting it with a computer-generated symbol, in this case, to show you as you look down that long linear that, yes, there is
a spot there.
2 or 3.
It's almost like a little Google thing.
It is. And so what will happen is as you drive closer, it gets bigger.
So that's interesting. And
that could happen right now.
Right. And I mean, you could have flags posted out of stores. I mean, you could be driving down if you wanted that, and you could be getting messages from every store. By the way, we have your coffee ready here for free. If you just come in and buy one, get
that
free
happens right now. If you use Waze and you sit at a traffic or at a stop, it has a brief period of time where you'll get a banner of an advertisement. That's how they monetized.
It's amazing. You shouldn't be looking at your phone while you're driving, but it's.
But that's why it takes a little while you're stopped.
That's right.
You notice it. You'll have to be stopped for a little while,
and then they'll show it
to you. you,
they're
and then they
waiting
can
for
only
that,
keep
right?
yes, and then as soon as you start moving, it has to go away. So it's pretty cool that that they can do it.
Now, for the 5G part, we said it was going to be a technology park, really, but we won't see that. I mean, we could, I guess, at some point, maybe that could be expanded to the Forum, to Town Center.
Oh, absolutely.
But really, right now, it's
Right now, it's
technology
just
park.
Tech Park.
Right. So, and you have to be subscribed to it or paying for that service to be able to take advantage of it.
Well, it depends. I mean, kind of like Wi-Fi now with a normal signal. If you get somewhere that has a Wi-Fi signal and your device has it and it's a public Wi-Fi, you can get on it.
Okay.
Or,
Well, they're going to provide that?
well, for the companies testing on
Okay.
here, yes.
Yes. But not
If
for
it
the
was
public.
like, Acme Widget Company occupied a building on here and they wanted to use it for commercial purposes, no, they would end up having to.
But if it's an individual parked in a parking lot or just personal use.
I don't know. I don't.
Okay.
I mean, they haven't
That would
gotten.
be-
It
that would be
depends.
interesting.
Now, of course, right now the thing is there's no phones on the market there.
Yes, that's true
So
too.
that's part of the.
Yeah. All right, so we have that going. There's just a ton of things going on there, but we also have the stuff going on construction-wise, just hard industrial stuff like the roundabout that's being built. At some point, they're going to start cutting stuff, I'm sure. Then we're going to start.
Yeah,
seeing
so
a
the
circle.
roundabout at Medlock Bridge and Peachtree Corners Circle is underway. The reason that they cleared the trees and put up the erosion sedimentation control fence and all that stuff kind of shows you that's really showing you the construction area.
Right.
Ultimately, it won't go that far out, but you have to have a greater area
Sure.
for equipment. The main holdup, aside from rain in some cases, was the utilities. So if you can, think about this, when you get into an urban area, and that intersection has been a T intersection for a long time. So the power company, the phone companies, fiber optics, water and sewer, all have been placed in the right-of-way of that intersection as it was in its old configuration of a T intersection. So all of a sudden, we've got to expand all that. So they have to move all that underground.
So how's that going?
It's almost done. But
Is
that's
it?
what
Okay.
takes so long.
Okay.
Just, you're kind of like, well, they already kind of graded it. Why are they not? Is because once we move the trees and everything, then Georgia Power had an underground vault in which they have lots of power, equipment
Yeah.
underground coming together or whatever. They had to take that and then move it. It's essentially a poured concrete room that's buried underground that a human can actually get down in, and you've got all sorts of stuff coming together. That has
And
to be moved outside of the
And probably rewired it.
Oh, absolutely.
Lengthen the wires and all
water
all
and
that.
sewer, fiber optic, power poles, above ground power poles,
Right.
all that stuff. So that's what took so long. We're getting ready to finish that, and then you're going to start seeing the cutout of where the lanes will go. And then
When
it'll
are we
start.
going to start saying that? I'm just curious.
Here in the next month or two.
Really? Okay. We were talking a little bit about cameras being installed now for not for ticketing of people going through an intersection, but really for other uses.
Yeah, so council I recently presented to council based on their desire for me to look into this, a proposal. And this was based on the city's desire, the mayor and council's desire to do what we could to supplement in any way Gwinnett County Police Department. And then, of course, our police department is our police protection is provided through an intergovernmental agreement with Gwinnett County, and so they provide our public safety resources, and so it's not directly funded by the city; it's funded through Gwinnett County continuing to charge the public safety property tax. So we don't have direct control of all of that, nor do we want to. But we sometimes wonder: are we doing everything to help them help us? And one of the things that they struggle with, like all the police departments, is recruiting and retaining enough officers. Are almost perpetually under strength.
Yeah, always.
Most departments are, and so. Despite the fact that having authorized strength of a certain number, they can't get, enough people to apply and stay in there. And so they struggle sometimes of having enough officers to do certain things depending on what's going on. Well, is there, mayor and council like, are we doing everything we can to help? And one of the ways that we looked at maybe helping is helping provide them more eyes, and I guess ears, but mostly eyes around the city.
Not really ears. They're not listening. It's more
No,
visual,
I mean, although some of the video, feeds could have audio.
Good. Okay.
But what I'm talking about is a network of either video surveillance cameras or license plate readers. And then a license plate reader, an LPR, is really a camera that takes a photo. It's oriented at a roadway at a certain angle that when a car passes, it takes a shot of the license plate. And those are both used by law enforcement agencies to investigate after the fact, and in some cases do real-world apprehension of individuals committing a crime. So, for instance, we all know how it could be used after the fact. A crime is committed, say, within a neighborhood, and the neighborhood could have a video camera at its entrance that they share the data with the police, and the police look back through and they pull certain things like type of a vehicle, maybe even get a facial shot of who was driving the vehicle, and they can use that to ultimately come up with a case. I mean, Chicago and the Jesse Smollett case, how they got to there was just different video camera feeds from different agencies around, sometimes in the background of things that they piece together, certain people meeting with it. So it's a powerful tool. So one of the ways is doing that. The other way, and that's kind of an after-the-fact thing, one of the ways in which it can work real time is if the police department is set up to support this. License plate readers can be set up that if a car drives past one and the license plate that image that's taken is a license plate on a car that has some sort of a bolo attached to it, be on the lookout. Like the car's reported stolen, an Amber Alert, or it's registered to somebody who has a warrant out for their arrest. It can then flag the law enforcement agency that has access that this car just went past this intersection, in real time. Now they have to support it. So let's say it does that, but then somebody's got to then turn around and see that, and then dispatch an officer.
So it doesn't automatically dispatch. I mean, the system recognizes.
No, it'll automatically tell them where it saw this license plate, but you've still got to then. It doesn't know where all the car. I mean, I don't. There's no automated dispatch quite yet, where you don't have any human. So there's still human dispatchers.
All right. So the screen pops up. They get a flag of that license plate.
Right, and they could say, all right, somebody just passed, on Peachtree Parkway. They just crossed over Spalding, headed north. Well, there could be an officer up, say, at the Forum. And say, it's coming my way, and then they get out there, and then they, pull the car.
Now, it would be interesting if they were lined up where every camera picks up the same one and could actually track.
Oh, it certainly can be.
So we talk about Peachtree Parkway only?
No. So the way we're going to do it is, and of course, these kind of things cost money, both one time to install, and then every month you've got ongoing cost to support the camera. For instance, all that data's got to be stored somewhere. So there's storage space. You got to have electricity to it. You got to have maintenance of it if it goes down. So there are a number of ways to do it, which is what we're investigating. There are some, like Georgia Power has an all-inclusive program. I think it's called Site View, in which they put cameras on their light poles. So it's an existing pole already. And then you just pay them monthly a set rate, and then they handle all of the stuff.
So light poles, let's say, as opposed to traffic poles.
Well, a traffic pole is the only one that just exists to hang some sort of a traffic control device. So that's usually a traffic signal.
So, but it wouldn't be on there. So it'd be on.
Well, it could be.
It could be.
We could have the intersection of Holcomb Bridge Road and Peachtree Corner Circle could be one where so where we put it is going to be based on how many cameras we're prepared to purchase and install and support.
Now, when we say we're still talking about the city. So the city will purchase this with money,
with general fund money.
General fund money. Okay.
Now, there's a number of ways to do this. So that one way is if it's on a public thoroughfare that there's not any one particular entity that benefits from it, then the public's got to pay for it, which means public dollars, which means city dollars.
Okay.
And, it can get expensive. Brookhaven has a pretty good network, and they're dropping about $20,000 a month in supporting the cameras.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what they have so many
paying
cameras.
Staff and
No, not internally,
Okay.
just to support the cloud storage and all that kind of stuff. Their police department then uses the data, and they have
because they have their own police department. Yeah.
So that's one way. There are instances in which it's benefiting one particular entity. A good example would be, say you have a large apartment complex that crime is a problem in, and there's one entrance, one ingress, egress. The city could, based on criminal activity, create a special assessment district, put in a camera at that location, and then assess the fee to support that camera that's at that intersection to the owner of the property.
Oh,
so the city has
the
just
city
like
could do that and assess.
But then in that case, you have to be able to establish a need.
Right.
In this case, it would be public safety and crime, and you would have to be able to establish the beneficiary of that service that you can define within that you can define in a more isolated way. It can't just be like, the intersection of a public intersection like Peachtree Corners Circle and Holcomb Bridge. If we put it on that intersection, who would we end up? All of us could benefit from. Yes, but if it was the entrance. Okay. And only at the entrance of cars that are going into a certain place that have crime, then it can be done.
So I'm curious. Now, let's say you put it on 141 Peachtree Parkway. It's a state road, right? But it would be the city that would pay for it. Gwinnett County would take care of the feed of the information, but the city would still pay the monthly
Right.
upkeep.
That's essentially how it would work, is we would want. So Gwinnett County PD is looking at creating a special unit that can take this data and use it in real time.
Okay.
It is resource intensive.
Right.
So they are having to look at it. So we're talking to them, and maybe we could be the first municipality that they serve or the first area they serve that we might be able to do something.
So no other city in Gwinnett is doing this?
Correct.
Okay. And these, and I'm just thinking out loud now, these cameras could be placed even on, for example, West Jones Bridge Road, heading out of West Jones Bridge Road onto 141. Could be on West Jones Bridge Road and Peachtree Corners Circle, or East Jones Bridge Road heading out onto 141.
Certainly.
Could be anywhere there. Could be in a park setting, maybe.
It could. I mean, all those public areas it could be.
Okay.
And then, it could also be, we highly encourage subdivisions or neighborhoods that maybe have, fixed finite entrances, that are easy. Put one in there. Lots of subdivisions here have cameras so that if you go into the subdivision and something happens, they have access to data to go back and then say who came in here and who.
So how would that work? So let's say they apply. Let's say Amberfield. I'm just throwing out it's a big subdivision. Amberfield says we have 2 entrances. We'd like cameras there. Can we apply to the city to make sure that there are cameras on either entrances? And then the homeowner association, would be assessed the fee?
We can do that.
Okay.
So in those cases where crime is not a driving force, what we would do is we would only do that if voluntarily they wanted that to happen.
Okay. And then you have to figure out the mechanism.
That's correct. So there's 2 ways to do it. So you could have a subdivision that just that has a mechanism like mandatory fees. And the HOA would just as soon handle all of it, so then they can just do it and assess the fee, and then go forward and control it. But there is a scenario in which the city could be involved, and it's like streetlight. We have a streetlight program where you can do the same thing. So let's say in Amberfield was like, look, our streets, which are city streets inside Amberfield, they're too dark. We want streetlights. The city's like, okay, if you get 80% of the property owners in Amberfield to say yes, the city will then put the streetlights in, Georgia Power, and then we will assess a fee based on all of those lights, the cost added together.
Right.
We'll divide it up by how many parcels there are in Amberfield, and that's how much each one would pay every year based on road frontage.
Right. Paid through the property tax.
And we would invoice it once a year on the property tax.
Okay.
We can do the same thing for cameras if a community wanted it. That's where the 80% comes in, is the city doesn't want to impose if we don't have to. And that's why if the city was going to, it will be based on an unacceptable level of criminal activity, which the city doesn't feel like it has a choice, but ones in which it's more of a deterrent or an asset if something happens. We're certainly looking at a program to help, but there could be a neighborhood that doesn't have an HOA.
Yes.
So they don't have a mechanism. So what they would do is they would say, look, we want this anyway. We're prepared to do this like the streetlight program. And so then they get enough signatures. They come in. The city says, fine. It puts a camera in. And then it takes the annual cost of having the camera operating. And it just, on a pro rata basis.
Could be one camera just coming out or
correct,
two cameras.
And then we just divide it up by the number of property owners that are in there. And it goes on their property tax bill. That way, a community that doesn't have an HOA can say, we don't have a mechanism to collect the fee.
Right.
Well, the city does.
Yes.
And if you want us to do that, we can.
Now, I live in a subdivision that has no HOA. We do pay a unofficial HOA fee that we've set up.
A voluntary
fee, like $35.
There's a number of subdivisions around here.
We have Georgia Power lights that were brought in, I think 3 or 4, because it was too dark and we wanted certain areas lit a little better, and we all get assessed that fee. So that's I could see that. Now I could also see some people saying eye in the sky and conspiracy and stuff like that, but.
So there's a couple ways. I'm glad you brought that up. So really, the city there's no scenario in which the city really wants the data. Okay. So there's really 2 ways to look at it. One is the entity that got a camera, whether it's video or license plate reader or both, because there are cameras that do both.
Okay.
Is that entity, like an HOA, they control the data. And there's a number of them that exist right now that are like that.
Really?
For instance, the data can only be accessed if a police report is filed.
Okay.
So
but the data is kept
in a cloud somewhere. And then who has access to it? There's some subdivisions that say nobody has access to it except Gwinnett County PD if a police report is filed.
Okay.
There are others that give, the password to their HOA board, the officers of their board.
Right.
And it can only be done if there's an incident. I mean, they come up with their own,
like if they had, let's say they wanted one near the pool.
Right.
Entrance, because that's, and there's vandalism there, they could always.
Then you go back and there's an incident.
Right.
So then that triggers somebody having access to it. And then they go backwards and they look at the time period and they say, Rico, what was he doing here at 2 in the morning? And,
Okay, so now that doesn't quite, so then we get this straight. In Gwinnett County, this system doesn't exist yet. The Gwinnett County Police
network does not exist right now.
Okay. The network doesn't. But
multiple cameras all tied together.
That doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist. There are. Peachtree Corners currently has locations in our corporate limits where these exist, and Gwinnett County has subdivisions that have cameras.
Really?
At the front of the subdivision, there is an incident, and that subdivision contacts Gwinnett County and says, we have video or license plate reader info. Here's access to it. Please use it in your investigation.
The HOA may have it, but they give access to the police. So it's not a police system.
No.
Okay, but
that doesn't exist. And even if the city did it, it wouldn't be owned by Gwinnett County PD. They don't want to. They're not in a position. I don't know if they want or not, but they're not in a position to afford that.
Right.
So in this case, the city would be the funding mechanism to get it out there and to pay in instances where it's on a public thoroughfare.
Sure. So that makes sense to be able to do that, but because Gwinnett Police patrol the city of Peachtree Corners, this is why.
That's correct.
Manage
so on those that are on a public thoroughfare, we would then tell Gwinnett County PD, we would say, look, let's set up a way that you can have access to it when you need it.
Okay.
In a more exclusive setting, like Subdivision X, that has an HOA or it's just a subdivision, and the homeowners don't want to lose control. They don't want Gwinnett County PD to have unfettered access to it. They could then kind of keep and decide when they let Gwinnett County PD have access to it or not.
Okay.
It's up to them.
Yeah.
But those would be instances where the city
That's
doesn't
interesting.
necessarily have. Yeah.
That's interesting because, I mean, if you think further out how that would work, if something happened and the county wants that data because it needs that data, they could always subpoena to get that data, I guess.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but
I'm not either.
If you go down that road, it's an interesting. But now, so when do we think this would take place?
Well, so the next step is for I got a meeting scheduled with Gwinnett County PD. Talk about two things. One, to get a little bit better idea of where they're at on this special unit asset to take this data and to
Right.
utilize it in real time, as well as we've got to take the map, the crime map,
Right.
and really get down into exactly where we've got some places, and that's going to determine where we may put cameras, what kind of cameras, and how many.
Yeah.
And then when we do, then it's a budgetary discussion.
Okay.
And so I'll present to council, depending on the numbers, of how much it would cost initially, and then how much it would cost
On a monthly basis.
on a monthly basis, and then whatever we feel like we can afford. That would be our phase one of our network.
Okay.
We put it in, and again, this would be on thoroughfares that nobody is, it's no dead-end streets.
I mean,
it's no
right, and I mean, right now I get crimemapping.com. It shows all the Gwinnett incidents reports.
That's helpful. It's not as detailed as
It's
Gwinnett
not,
County
right.
PD. So I will end up sitting down with their crime
Okay.
analysis team and really get into it. And so there'll be a certain threshold in which the city says that's certainly that's unacceptable. Not to say that any crime is acceptable, but there's a level in which you're like, okay,
Sure.
we got to do something.
Right.
That would be an area where we look to put something in there. Maybe it's one in which there's a particular location that we feel like the owner of that property, like a big apartment complex where there's lots of problems, maybe we say, I'm sorry, but you need to be part of the solution.
Right.
Or maybe the city absorbs it, but ultimately our idea is to be providing a force multiplier to Gwinnett County PD. It's a way to make them, a little bit better without us getting involved in having our own police department or whatever.
Right.
I mean, think about it. If you wanted to add a single pair of eyes for a 24-hour period, 365, that's about 3.5 people. Because with 24-hour shifts and time off and sick and training, you need about 3 to 3.5 people to provide 24-hour coverage on one shift. So that's one set of eyes for a 24-hour
Replacing
period.
that.
About one officer with salary, benefits, equipment costs, call it $100,000 per position. So that's about $350,000 a year to add one more human asset to the force.
Interesting.
Or, now that human asset can move around and do things a camera can't. Or, for much lower, you could add a bunch of eyes, lots of areas
Sure.
of the city, and it not be so
Makes
cost
a lot of sense.
prohibitive.
And I could also see in a lot of different places, even schools being placed near schools also.
Certainly.
Because, God knows things happen in schoolyards and parking lots and stuff.
So we're going into this very carefully, both from a cost standpoint and from a who has access to data standpoint and all this kind of stuff. But the city has absolutely positively no interest in this. This is really for, the improvement of public safety in the city. Period.
Okay, great.
So-
There was one other question. It just hit me that I wanted to ask about it, and that is, obviously, there'll be questions out there too saying, well, this isn't going to be used for speeding tickets. That's obviously not the intent.
No, this isn't speed
And
detection
that's
at all. There's
because
nothing to do with speeding
that takes
detection.
radar and other things.
Correct.
to be-
Yeah. No.
okay.
These won't have that ability even.
Okay.
It's not for that.
All right.
And that's actually there's a law that sets that up. That's really, but
That's
no.
a whole separate
Besides,
ballgame.
that's actually not really. Yeah. It's just no.
All
This
right.
isn't that at all.
All right, cool. Excellent. To me, that's great news. I don't mind that added security because, I've known neighbors that have cameras, the eye rings and stuff like that, and they've seen people in their driveways
Oh, yeah.
just checking the handles of their cars
Oh,
to
yeah.
see if the car would open. Just like at night and just walking
One
around and just doing it.
unfortunately one of the downsides of being a community that is blessed enough to have, some wealth, it attracts people who know that.
Yeah,
and so we have a lot of, we're a target-rich environment for property crime because people are like, there's resources there, and so they go into driveways at night and they'll see things of value underneath, laying on, the passenger side, or they'll, if it's unlocked, they'll just open the door, check the glove compartment.
Yeah.
Sometimes there can be weapons and other things.
They could also be taking garage door openers to come back later when no one's around. Just open the garage and go. I mean, So lots of stuff.
Yep.
We're at the end of the hour, and I know there was a lot more we could talk about.
There always is.
Today.
It's a great problem to have.
Yes, definitely. So we are at the end of the hour. I want to thank Brian for being here for an hour and discussing this, especially this last bit, because this is interesting to be able to do this.
Yeah, so more to follow.
Yeah.
I mean, as we flesh this out.
For
But
sure.
council is interested enough that we're going to do something.
Okay.
I just don't know how big, where, and everything, but we're going to do something because they feel very strongly about public safety, and they feel like they can help the organization that is responsible for providing that in the city. And so they're serious about it, and we're going to make it happen.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank everyone that's joined us for the show, for this live stream, and for this podcast. If you're downloading it off iTunes or iHeart or Spotify, wherever you're listening from, I appreciate you joining us. Again, we're doing this in the studios of Prototype Prime, an incubator here in the city of Peachtree Corners. And we are also we have a sponsor that came on just recently, CMX Cinebistro. That's opened already in the town center, in the new town center. So I want to thank them for being a sponsor of ours, and great place. Like I said, it's to me, it's like a 4-star restaurant that happens to show great movies. Great place to be, 21 and over after 6, and you could go on Fandango and some other sites to make reservations there and go there 30 minutes ahead of the movie. They serve the food before the movie starts and not during the movie, so a lot different than other dinner movies that you may have been used to, so a little bit more upscale. So great place to be. We have other shows coming up. In fact, hopefully you're watching my other podcast with Carl Barham. He's my co-host on Capitalist Sage. It's twice a month. We talk to business leaders that give us, in 25 minutes, their sage advice on all sorts of things. So I want to thank you guys. Hopefully you can check that out. That's also on iTunes. Find that on our new website, livinginpeachtreecorners.com, and that's where you can find lots of information about the city, opening restaurants, and all that stuff. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.